So class A, class B, class C, class D, and class C. So at this moment, okay, we are using only these three, classes. That is class A, B, and C. Whatever the application, whatever the portal that you see, okay, which are falling under this particular IP ranges only. Okay, it is 00 means okay, it will be like 00. Okay, 00, 00, 00. That means okay, let me put it below. So which is starting from a 00.00.00.002, okay, to 55.255.255. So this is the range of the 32-bit IP, that is IPv4, and among which okay, so they have segregated into multiple classes. So even though within this these are all like whatever you see here, these are like a public IPs. So among which okay, so again okay, so they have segregated into private IPs. Okay, so let's see the what is the private IPs of this particular class here. So let me go back here and I'll open a I'll say private IP, and here okay, so let me open this particular window. And if you see here, so class A private IPs will be starting from 10.0.02, 10.255.255. Let me copy this. Okay, and same way okay, class B private IPs will be this is the range. Okay, we'll discuss about them okay in detail now. And the same way this is the class C private IP. Okay, so in your local computer or in your office laptop, whatever the IPs you see, okay, those might be falling under okay either this particular private IP ranges, because we cannot use the public IPs okay for everything. Okay, so internally what happens is okay, so for your local system you will be having a private IP, and whenever if you wanted to connect to any public IP, okay, so you will be using a certain routers. Okay, those will be converting your private IP into the public IP. So at this moment, for example, if I open my local CMD also, okay, so if I wanted to see my personal computer IP address, okay, so I can just type IP config. Okay, let's say here I just say IP config. uh, okay, so here you could see currently we are discussing about the IPv4, right? That is Internet Protocol version 4. Okay, here you could see my local system IPv4, so which is starting which is under 192.168. So here you could see 192.168 is the class C private IP. Okay, so you check any system like so maybe your local system or maybe your office laptop or maybe anything. Okay, so for your local system okay, only private IPs will be assigned. Okay, so for example, if I say ping google.com. Okay, so this google.com might be having certain private IP. Okay, so here okay, I'm getting class C public IP. This is, so let me check it. Okay, let me copy these. I wanted to get the IPv4 address for this, so let me simply copy this. If I put it here in the top, okay, so if I go here IP information, this is like a, by the way, here we are discussing about the two type of classes, right? uh, if I come back here, so here we are discussing about the two types of classes. One is IPv4, another one is like a IPv6. So whatever the IP we got it here, right? It is like IPv6 address. Okay, this is how the IPv6 address will be looks like, and it will be like 64-bit. So let's see the IPv4 address for this. If at all I wanted to see the IPv4 for this, uh, let me put it in a different window. Okay, let's see. So earlier, okay, it is to give the IPv4 address. Let's wait one second. IPv4, I say. So One second. Okay, convert IPv6 to IPv4. Let's see this one. Yeah, let me check. Yeah, so here, okay, I'm just opening a converter, so which will convert the IPv6 as IP address to the IPv4. So let's see here. So if at all have any mechanism to route this particular traffic. No. So let me try to do one more thing, like let's say ping azure.com. Let's see what IP it is giving. And if you see here, so it is pinging to an IPv6. Okay, probably I don't know what is the issue with the google.com. And if you see here, okay, it is trying to ping on a this particular azure.com. Probably it is pinging on this particular IP. Okay, so here if you see, okay, 104 might be falling under any one of the class A public IPs. Okay, similarly, if you take any IPs, like for example, I think it is like a portal.azure.com. Let me try to cancel this window. Yeah, it is sending the packet. Okay, so let me say like ping portal.azure.com. Okay, so it is pinging on this particular IP if you see. Okay, 20 dot 41.193.28. Okay, if you see here, okay, this might be falling under any one of the public IPs only. For example, okay, so 20 dot means okay, it is like a class A public IP. Same way, okay, so let me cancel this window. Okay, so let me clear the screen. Okay, so if I say ping, okay, facebook.com. Okay, so this might be having like certain IP. I think why I don't know it is giving IPv6, but whatever the IPs you see here, okay, those are like uh, falling under either class A, class B, or class C. Okay, let me try to figure it out. Okay, how can I convert into IPv4? Let's say this one here. Uh, Here you could see the organization is called a Facebook. Okay, so whenever I put this particular IP, okay, this is like IPv6. Okay, so here you could see the organization as a Facebook, but I wanted to see it in a IPv4. Okay, let's see. Do I have anything here? No. Okay, we'll see this later, but on a high level, okay, just to show you, give you some context. Okay, so whatever the IPs you see in the market at this moment, okay, they will be falling under Class A, Class B, or Class C itself. And among these classes, okay, so we have like a private IPs. This is Class A private IP, this is Class B private IP, and this is Class C private IP. And make sure if any series starting from 10.0.02, 10.255.255, this is like a Class A private IP. And this is like standard. Okay, so if any IP series starting from 172.16, okay, till 172.31, so it will be like a class B private IP. And same as with the class C, that is 192.168 till 192.168 to 255. Okay, so even within Azure also, whenever we are going to create any network, okay, so we are going to use the private IPs only for a specific network. Okay, that is the reason, okay, I have giving you some high level context about this particular IP classes. Okay, whenever we go ahead and create a network, okay, so I will be creating this particular 10.0.0. Okay, you should know, you should be familiar with what exactly this 10 dot is about. This is like a class A private IP. Okay, and currently we are using IPv4 public IP. Okay, IPv4 version, that is like a internet protocol version 4, that is 32-bit IPs. Okay, we are currently using, we are not using IPv6, right? So this is one important thing, and additional thing is like so calculating this particular subnet mask and CIDR ranges. For example, Okay, so let me show you how we can how we need to calculate this particular side ranges. For example, if I say, okay, this is my private IP, so let me copy this particular IP, and if I put the subnet mask as a /16, okay, so you should be familiar with how many IPs I will get it. Okay, so by taking this particular IP, that is 10.0.0 and /16. Okay, so somebody was pinging. Okay, so is it working? Okay, let's see. Yeah, so here you could see. Okay, so let me try to ping this particular IP address. For example, I go here. I'll say ping google.com. Okay, if you see here, okay, here I'm getting like this particular IPv6 side IP. I'll simply copy this and I'll put it here. And if I search, okay, so it should be converting this particular IP into this particular result. No, I think it is wrong. It should be something else. Okay, if I try to copy this, okay, this is not a accurate one. So it is not giving proper. That's okay. Leave it for now. Uh, let's come back here where I was. Yeah, compared to notepad. Yeah. So calculating this particular side ranges is very important. You being as an Azure administrator. Okay. So before you go ahead and deploy any resources, okay, first we'll be designing the network. So within this network, okay, you should be calculating how many IP address we needed. Okay. So those stuff. Okay. Just for now, okay, I'm just giving you high level context. Okay, how to calculate. Okay, for example, if you have any IP and the cider subnet mask has a cider ranges as something like /16 as 32 or 24 or 27 or 29. Okay, so those things, okay, we'll just quickly see. Okay, so how do we calculate is like 2 to the power of, okay, so since it is a 32 bit, okay, so we'll be keeping a 32 and minus, so whatever the cider range we have here at this moment, okay, I have it as a 16. Okay, so I will keep the 16, so that, okay, I will be getting the result as 2 to the power of 16. So if I say 2 to the power of 16, okay, let me open my calculator here. Okay, so I'm just opening the scientific calculator. So 2 to the power of 16, okay, 2 to the power of 16, okay, which will be coming around 65,536. Okay, so try to remember this value also. Okay, so because, okay, on your day-to-day job, okay, so you will be majorly using the maximum of cider block as a 16. Okay, and when you take a /16, okay, you will be getting 65,536 IPs. Okay, so but in general, so within Azure, so by default, okay, so whatever the IPs you choose, okay, so pi IPs will be reserved by Azure. Okay, for the initial networking setup, for the gateway and for the firewall and for the networking. Okay, and available IPs are only 65,531. Okay, this is very important even for the interviews also. Okay, they might ask you, okay, so when I take a /16 cider range, okay, they will give some IP. Let us say example, like let's say this one only, 10.0.0/16. So they will ask you how many IPs I will get. Okay, so you have to calculate like this. That is 2 to the power of, since it is a 32-bit IP, okay, I'm taking 32-bit, 32 here, and minus, okay, whatever the cider range I have. And when I calculate it, okay, it will be coming under 2 to the power of 16, and the value will be like 65,536. And again, they might ask you, can I use all the IPs? No. Okay, so among these 5 IPs will be reserved by Azure. You will be allowed to use only 65,531 IPs. Same way, okay, so you will be using, okay, this IP very no, frequent. Okay, for example, let's say, okay, /24. And somebody will quickly calculate and tell me how many IPs I will get it here when I take a cider range as a /24. Okay, just keep 2 to the power of 32 minus 24. Okay, so let me show you here. I'll just simply copy this. Okay, equal to, you will be getting like 2 to the power of, so what is the value? 8. So when you go with the 2 to the power of 8, okay, the value will be 256. Okay, let me show you that. So let me cancel this. 2 to the power of 8, and it will be like 256. Among these 256 IPs, again, okay, 5 IPs will be reserved by Azure, Microsoft, and available IPs are only 251. Okay, same way. Okay, so we can take like zero. Just try to remember the available IPs for this particular CIDR ranges, because these are the CIDR ranges. Okay, we are generally going to use it, okay, on a day-to-day activities. So for example, if I say 27/27, okay, so as part of our trainings and on our day-to-day regular activities. Okay, we okay, so
Maybe 23.
sorry,
23.
23. Okay, so let's calculate it now. So 2 to the power of 32 minus, okay, we are doing 27. Okay, that means how much it will come? 2 to the power of 5. Okay, so when you say 2 to the power of 5, okay, so if you don't know, okay, let's open a calculator, I'll show you. Okay, 2 to the power of 5, so which is carrying around 32 IPs. Okay, so among 32 IPs, okay, I said, right, okay, 5 will be reserved by Microsoft, and available IPs are 27. Okay, so by default, just remember, when you take a side range as slash 27, available IPC will get only 27. Okay, so total is 32, but available will be 27. And least, okay, you can take a side range as, okay, slash 29. Okay, the least side range, okay, what you can, okay, then in interviews you might get a answer, question also. What is the maximum side range I can take, and what is the least side range I can take? So maximum you can take it as a slash 16, and the least you can take it as a slash 29. Because why 29? I'll show you now. For example, if I say 2 to the power of 32 minus 29, okay, how much it will be coming? 2 to the power of 3. So 2 to the power of 3 means, okay, I will be getting 8. So among 8, okay, again, like 5 IPs will be reserved by Microsoft, and only available IPs are 3. So for example, let's say if I take 30 here, okay, what happens? 2 to the power of 32 minus 30, okay, you will be getting 2 to the power of 2. 2 to the power of 2 equal to 4. Okay, among 4, Microsoft itself needed 5 IPs, okay, for the initial networking setup, and you don't even will be having a initial setup IP ranges also. So that is the reason the least IP range we can go within a slash 29. So whereas when you go with the slash 29, you will get available IPs are only 3, but a maximum we can go with up to slash 16. Likewise, okay, so these are the main cider ranges we use. Apart from this, okay, you can keep use like slash 15, slash 14, 12, 13. Okay, like I mean to say slash 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 20. Likewise, okay, you can use any multiple cider ranges among these, starting from 16 and ending with a 29. Okay, but you should familiar with calculating this particular cider ranges. This is also very important. Okay, so this is what I wanted to cover on a high level. Okay, so what type of IPs we are going to use? Okay, we are going to use at this moment, okay, IPv4, that is Internet Protocol version 4, and among which, okay, we have a different classes, class A, B, C, D, and E, and among which, okay, we are using only these type of classes, and in which, okay, again we have certain private IPs. So these are the private IP ranges. So remember these particular ranges. Okay, at least you should know this particular series. If any IP starting with 170.16, it will be like class B private IP. If any IP starting from 10.0, it will be like class A private IP. If any IP starting with 190.16, it will be like private IP. So let me open my portal here, and I will go to the particular virtual network. Let's see, do I have any networks here? So these are the networks, okay, which created by somebody else. Okay, don't worry. We'll see how to create it also. For example, if I go to any VNet here, okay, this is a virtual network, and my IPs will be like you can see it here, 10.0.0./16. Okay, so let me go to this particular address space here. Don't worry. Okay, we are going to discuss about them in detail. And if you see here, okay, so when I go to this address space, okay, I'm taking a slash 16. This slash 16 will be IP starting from 10.0.0.2. Okay, it is ending with a 255.255. That means here I'm getting almost like a 65,536 IPs. Can you see the same thing here? Okay, when I take slash 16, I'm getting 65,536 IPs. This is on a VNet level. But when you go to the subnets, okay, so here you could see, okay, this is the subnet range I'm taking, that is slash 24. So when you take a slash 24, okay, so how many IPs I'm getting? 250, 256 IPs, among which okay available IPs are 251. Okay, so I think okay, so among this available 251 IPs, okay, one IP is assigned to some VM, so that is the reason okay it is showing available IPs as only 250. Okay, so we'll discuss about in detail about this concept. Don't worry, I'm just giving you high level context. Okay, so how this particular virtual networks. Okay, so these IP ranges okay will be designed even in Azure, and whatever the IPs we are going to use for the specific to networks, these are like a private IPs. So we are going to use the public IPs also. Okay, just to connect to the VMs and all. So that also we'll see while creating the VMs for today. Fine. So let me open a new notepad here now. And I wanted to discuss one more agenda for today is something like creating the VMs servers. Okay, so creating the VMs, that is VM is nothing but a virtual machine. So we simply call it as in like in AWS, okay, we simply call it as an instance. Okay, on premises, okay, we call it as a server. And in some other cloud provider, okay, they might call in something different. Okay, don't confuse with the word. But okay, on a high level, just remember for this for now. Okay, we are going to call it as a virtual machine on Azure. So before you go ahead and create any virtual machine on Azure, okay, so you should know some of the planning. Okay, so planning includes like why do you want this? Why do you want use this particular server? So for example, a developer comes to you and say, okay, I need a server, okay, to develop certain application. Okay, for the developers, okay, you don't need to high configuration server. Okay, you need to have a some minimal server. Okay, so before you go ahead and create any servers, okay, so these are the certain prerequisites that you need to capture. Okay, so first, okay, you need to take a use case. Okay, for what purpose? Okay, so they wanted to use this particular server. Okay, so based on this particular use case, okay, we are going to choose this particular servers size. Okay, size includes like virtual CPUs and RAM. Okay, so just I'll give you, a real time use case. Okay, whenever you go out and buy a laptop, right? Okay, or maybe laptop or a desktop. Okay, you will look for the configuration, right? So what is the RAM? Okay, whether it is a 8 GB RAM. Okay, and like whether you wanted to go with the HDD or SSD. Okay, if it is HDD, okay, so probably I think okay, so in the market currently, okay, they are having minimum 1 TB, disk space, right? So they will you will look for this particular configuration, right? So like what is the processor, whether it is a AMD processor or a Intel processor, right? So these are the basic common things, okay, that you look for, okay, based on your use case. Okay, so if you're buying it for the video gaming purpose, okay, maybe you might go with the AMD processor or with a high memory, maybe instead of 8 GB, okay, you might go with 16 GB or a 32 GB RAM. So based on your use case, okay, you will buy your laptop, right? Same as here. So whatever the usage, okay, that they wanted. So based on that use case, okay, I need to choose the memory and virtual CPUs and RAM and the size of the server. And one more thing is, okay, you should also know, okay, under which subscription, okay, you wanted to create this particular server. Okay, for example, let's say, okay, you might be having some 100 subscription, and you are already having access to those 100 servers, and you should be knowing, right? Okay, under which subscription you should create this particular server. Okay, you cannot just blindly go ahead and create VM in any one of this subscription, which is not a recommended way. Okay, so one thing is you should know the subscription, and you should have a certain roles assigned. For example, if you have a reader access and a subscription, you cannot create a VM. Okay, at least okay, you should have a contributor access. Okay, if at all if you wanted to create any resources in on Azure. So this is one of the prerequisites, and you should also know region. Under which region, okay, you wanted to deploy this particular server. Okay, so let's say, okay, so I have a let's say, okay, you're like you're working for the state services, and you are supporting for the multiple regions, and you will be getting a request from the different regions. Okay, you might be having a regions like in US region, Europe, India, Asia, and within like you might be having certain UAE. So those kind of regions you are supporting, let's say. Okay, you should know, like, if whenever you get a request, okay, you should familiar with under which region you wanted to deploy. Okay, let's say, okay, I have request from the US region. Okay, within a US also, okay, they might be having certain concerns. Okay, within a US, okay, we have a different regions, right? Okay, East US, West US, right? We also have like a, East US too also. Okay, if at all, if you wanted to see the list of regions, okay, we'll have a look now. But yeah, you should familiar with, under which region you wanted to deploy the for a specific server, right? So apart from this, okay, so we also should know, like, certain naming standard. Okay, so in a real time, okay, so companies might be following certain naming standards. Okay, so they didn't just blindly go out and create the servers, okay, with the, random numbers. Okay, so for example, okay, so they will be following the namings as, like, as follows. So let's say first, okay, they'll start with the project name. Okay, and then, okay, they might, start with the environment, or maybe, like, region. Okay, so then, okay, so they start with the environment. I'll just keep it as a env, and, like, resource type, and then, okay, certain prefixes or suffix. Okay, example, okay, let me give you an example here. Okay, so for creating this particular VM, okay, I wanted to follow this particular naming standard. So let's say project. So let's say, okay, so my project name could be like, Ford. Okay, let's say mine is an automobiles project, and I'm working for a project called Ford, or maybe like you can say anything. Let's say I say Kia. Let's say I'm working for a Kia project. Okay, if you're working for any other project, okay, let's say IKEA. Okay, IKEA is also one of the, retail market, right? So let's say you're working for IKEA. Okay, you have to keep the, project name, and you should, give the region. Okay, so IKEA, I think, okay, they have into certain, I don't remember the region where they're supporting, but let's say okay, they are also have it in a USTS. This project is belongs to USTS region. Okay, you have to keep that region, and you have to keep the environment. Okay, whether it is a dev or a QA or production, and you have to say the resource type. Okay, let's say, okay, I'm going to create a VM, so that's why I will keep it as a VM, and you have to pick you the prefix as a 01. Likewise, if you are creating a multiple servers, okay, so you can go with, 01, 02, 03, 04. Likewise, okay, at the end. So this is the certain namings for standards we generally follow. Okay, before we go ahead and create any resources within Azure. Okay, so if at all, if you are creating a resource group, okay, here, okay, resource type, okay, I'll keep it as an RG. Okay, so your organization, okay, they might be, defined already certain standards. It could be not similarly like this, but same way. Okay, they might be defined certain naming standard. You have to follow that, and by looking at this particular naming, okay, you will come to know this is belongs to the IKEA project, and it is in a east to west region, and it's a dev environment, and this is like a resource type is a resource group. So likewise, okay, by looking at the name itself, okay, you will be able to understand. And secondary thing, okay, so since it is like a Windows VM, okay, so okay, here, okay, so I say, size. Okay, this comes under size only. How much size, okay, you wanted to create. So based on the use case, okay, I will be defining the size. In addition to that, okay, we should also know, like, virtual network. Okay, so virtual network IP ranges. Okay, so for creating this IP address, a virtual network also. Okay, so we'll be following this particular naming standard. So here, okay, instead of RG, we'll keep it as a VNet, as a virtual network. Okay, so you should know IP ranges also. Okay, you cannot just blindly, create, go with any one of the IP address. Okay, so within your organization, okay, you might be having certain standards. Let's say, for example, for east to east, okay, you should be using the certain IP ranges, and for the west to east, you should be using certain IP ranges. For the India region, you have to use the certain IP ranges. Okay, they will be, assigning these particular ranges. You have to, follow those standards also. Okay, so and the second thing is, one more thing is, okay, you should know, like, username and password before we go ahead and create any VMs. Okay, so we need these details, that is username and password also. And in addition to that, okay, you should also familiar with, let's say, for example, if they wanted to install any extensions. Okay, so let's say, okay, while creating the VM, okay, so I wanted to have certain Visual Studio to be installed by default, or maybe some development tools like Git and so some like local VS Code. So these are some of the development tools. So I wanted to be installed by default, okay, on my server. So those use cases also, okay, you need to capture the things first. So likewise, okay, so we'll be having certain prerequisites. So based on those, okay, you have to capture the details and go ahead and create the servers. So for now, let's quickly go ahead and see quickly how we can create a server within Azure. So if I go to the portal, okay, so I can go navigate to this particular create a resource, and from here, okay, so here I could see a Windows Server 2019 data center. So I can just choose it also. Okay, so this is one more type, okay, which I forgot. Uh, so whether you wanted to have a VM type, like whether it is a Windows or Linux. This is also important. Okay, if it is a Windows, okay, within Windows also we have a different flavors. Okay, we have a 2016, okay, 2019, okay, we also have 2012 R2. Okay, so if you come to the Linux, okay, within Linux, okay, we have more again. So for example, okay, so within Linux, okay, we have a RHEL. Okay, within RHEL also we have like a RHEL 7, RHEL 8. Okay, and we also have CentOS. Okay, we also have a Ubuntu. So these are like OS flavors, operating system flavors. Okay, so for the people, okay, just to understand, make you understand, okay, on your local system, okay, you will be having like a Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10 operating system, right? Same as here, okay, for the Windows also on a server level operating system. So we have these type of types, whereas within in case of Linux, okay, we have these many. Okay, we'll also see those now. So let me go back here. I'll come from the beginning again. So if I wanted to create any resource, I can go here, okay, create a resource. I can choose this particular VM, and here we go. So if you remember the hierarchy what we discussed, before we go ahead and create any resource on Azure, so it will be starting with a subscription, and within a subscription first we'll be creating a resource group, and within the resource group we'll be creating the resources, right? So do you remember the hierarchy? So this is what, okay, we'll be following for creating each and every resource. So you should choose the which subscription you wanted. So at this moment I have access to only single subscription, so that's the reason, okay, I'm choosing it one subscription. If at all, if you have a 100 subscription, and you should know, uh, if you wanted to create a this VM into the specific subscription, you have to choose it from the drop down like this. And within here resource group also, if at all, if you wanted to create a within existing resource group, okay, you can choose any one of the existing resource group and create, or we can also create a new resource group directly from here. So I can just use this particular create a new, and here, okay, so let me follow this particular naming standard here. Let's create, and I'll follow the naming standard as, okay, so let's say I'll go with the project name as code only. Okay, I wanted to deploy into the ES2S, and this is the dev environment, and here I'm going to create an RG and a 01, and let me click on OK. And here something, if you see new, right, that means, okay, you are creating the new resource group. Okay, so same way, okay, let me pass the VM name. Okay, for the VM name also I'll follow the same naming standard. Okay, so I say like ES2S dev VM01. Okay, so which has taken, that is fine. And you should choose the region, because we decided to go with the east to east. Okay, I need to choose the east to east region here. Okay, and this high availability option, okay, we'll discuss tomorrow. Okay, so if at all, if you wanted to keep your servers into the high availability, so we have a two concepts called availability set and availability zone. So this, okay, we'll discuss tomorrow. And coming to the image, okay, so image is nothing but an operating system. Okay, so here I could see when I click on this particular thing, here I could see, okay, what type of operating systems I have. Okay, so coming to the Windows, so I have like 2019 data center, that is 2019 server, 2016 22 R2, and you can also have a normal Windows 10 Pro operating systems VM also, same as you will be having on your local system, right? And for the folks who are don't have a Windows 10 to be installed on their local system, I recommend them to create one server with a Windows 10 Pro, and they can practice installing this module just to have some hands on. And whenever they wanted to perform some activities for automation, they can log into this particular VM and they can use those particular PowerShell or a CLI. Okay, so for now I'll go with the same Windows 2019. If at all if you wanted to go with any Linux flavors, so here you could see these are okay, like Linux flavors. So at this moment, okay, let's go with the Windows. Okay, I'll go with the Windows 2016. Okay, and coming to the sizes, okay, here we have a different sizes. Okay, let me click on this particular view all sizes, and based on the use case, okay, you have to choose this particular size. Okay, so currently, okay, so we have a different sizes. Okay, let me add a filter here. I'm just adding the filter, and within the filter, okay, just go to the family, and within the family here you could see these many type of sizes we have. In an interview point of view, okay, so they might ask you like how many types of VMs we have in Azure also. Okay, don't confuse, okay, in those scenarios. So when you say how many types of VMs, you have to talk about this particular types of the sizes. So we have like these many sizes, like when I go with the general purpose. So general purpose includes like here you could see this series is very important. When I go with the general purpose, okay, this series is starting with a D series or a B series. Okay, and here we will be getting a minimal sizes like two virtual CPUs and 8 GB RAM, and one virtual CPU is a 3.5 GB RAM, a very minimal one. And IAP sizes also. So like you will be given with a certain data disk, like a temporary disk, like hardly 4 GB. In addition to that, okay, so okay, whether it will be supported for the premium disk or not, okay, you could see, okay, they are supported. And if I go with this particular size, okay, what will be the monthly cost? Okay, you will be getting an estimated cost directly here. If you're up and on this particular VM for 1 month, 24/7, you will be charged with a 6,626 rupees. When you go with the one virtual CPUs and 3.5 GB RAM. Okay, so this is something like a general purpose. So if I go with the GPU, GPU is something like designed for the video gaming purpose. So if at all if you are planning to develop any gaming servers, okay, these are the GPU sizes you have to choose. And sometimes okay you don't see some sizes, okay, they are like a grayed out. So this will be varies again based on the region. If at all if you are looking for any certain size, okay, so you have to go ahead and change the region, because all the sizes will not be available in all the regions. Okay, and if you see here, this particular GPU will be starting with the N series. Okay, and the series also you have to remember. And if you see here, okay, I have like almost 40 virtual CPUs and 672 GB RAM, okay, which is majorly used for the gaming development. Okay, and you can see the IOP size and the temporary disk size and their cost also. Okay, here you could see, okay, which is costing almost like a 1,10,000. Likewise, if I go here, okay, insufficient quota region limit or insufficient quota. So these are all like why I'm not getting here is, since mine is a free trial subscription. I think within this particular free trial subscription we have already two VMs. I think those VMs might be created under this particular east to east region only. So that is the reason I'm not getting it here. Let me quickly cross check. If I go to this particular virtual machine tab, and as you could see, so these are all hosted in the central US. That is fine. Okay, so for the free trial account, okay, we have seen some quota utilization, right? If you remember. So let me show you that quickly now. If I go to the subscription, so this is my subscription. You have to click on it, and if I come down, okay, so on a subscription blade, okay, we have discussed it. Okay, if you remember, so we have discussed about something like usage and quota. I don't know whether you remembered it or not. So this quota will be having, okay, for the specific uh, region, okay, only four quotas. You take any region, okay, it will be only four virtual CPUs. Here you could see total regional virtual CPUs, right? For every region, okay, you will be having only four virtual CPUs. Total region virtual CPUs, that is Microsoft Compute, and within this particular central US, okay, we are having only four. So if I come back here, so whatever we are seeing here, so it will be like more than that. Okay, if you see here 40, 10, 26, these are like what more than what we have for the free trial. So that is the reason, okay, within this particular free trial account we cannot choose this particular sizes because they are like above the quota size. So this is something like a GPU. And if you wanted to go with a high performance compute, so generally this particular high performance compute, okay, we generally use it on a production servers. Okay, so whereas okay you will be having a high RAM power, and you will be having a high virtual CPUs also, and high IOPS power also you will be getting. And you can see how much it will be costing, okay, so per month. Okay, which is starting from a H series. Same way, okay, we have like compute optimized. So when I go with the compute optimized, okay, so this is something like optimizing the compute power. Okay, here you could see something like minimal average sizes like 1632 or 816. Okay, so like average, okay, instead of you wasting a certain virtual CPU sizes, okay, they will be giving with a minimal one, and it is starting from a F series. This series you have to remember, right? So if I go to the remaining, that is memory. So for the memory, okay, it is something like RAM. Okay, here you could see the minimal sizes, okay, starting from 14, 20, 122, different sizes. Okay, which is starting from again D series. And I can also have a storage optimized. Okay, when I go with the storage optimized, okay, so which is giving me something like uh, this temporary disk sizes. Okay, here you could see a very huge. Okay, it is almost like some in terabytes, which is starting from a L series. So this particular storage optimized, okay, we generally they will be using for the database servers. For example, if you are creating any database within Azure VM, and if you wanted to have a certain data disk, okay, so we can go with this particular L series for the storage optimized. And addition to that, okay, I think okay they have introduced this particular new, that is and This series you have to remember, right? So if I go to the remaining, that is memory. So for the memory, okay, it is something like RAM. Okay, here you could see the minimal sizes, okay, starting from 14, 20, 122, different sizes, okay, which is starting from again D series. And I can also have a storage optimized. Okay, when I go with the storage optimized, okay, so which is giving me something like uh, this temporary disk sizes. Okay, here you could see a very huge. Okay, it is almost like some in terabytes, which is starting from a L series. So this particular storage optimized, okay, we generally they will be using for the database servers. For example, if you are creating any database within Azure VM, and if you wanted to have a certain disk, data disk, okay, so we can go with this particular L series for the storage optimized. And addition to that, okay, I think okay they have introduced this particular new, that is confidential compute. So under this confidential compute, okay, you will be getting all the quotas, okay, in a minimal, like DSU, like a 2 or some reasonable virtual CPUs and RAM. So these are the different types of VMs, okay, which are present within Azure. So whenever somebody speak like types of VMs, okay, you have to choose these sizes. So here, okay, I have mentioned the purpose, right, as first one, use case. So for example, if you are going for if you are going to create a server for the developer, okay, we can go with a general purpose. Okay, so I can choose a general purpose. So under this general purpose, okay, I can choose any one of the size. Okay, for example, I can choose this particular two virtual CPUs and 8 GB RAM, which is fair enough for the developer. And if at all, if I am going to create a production server, okay, I have to use this particular high performance compute, because for the production you need a high RAM and at the same time virtual CPUs also. And if I wanted to create any server for the gaming purpose, okay, I need to go with the GPU. Okay, within this GPU, okay, I need to choose this particular sizes. So likewise, so based on your use case, okay, you have to choose this particular sizes. This is what, okay, I was discussing about the use case and size. And I just compared with general laptop. Whenever you go out and buy any laptop, so based on your use case, okay, you will be purchasing it, same as here. So for now, okay, let's go with the general purpose. And within this general purpose, okay, I'll go with this bare minimal one, okay, which has a one virtual CPUs and 3.5 GB RAM. Or else, okay, I'll go with this, and let me click on select. Okay, and I need to pass some username and password. Okay, so if I see here, okay, so it will be having certain conditions. The username should be between like one letter to the 20 characters long, and it should not contain, okay, any one of these particular special symbols. Okay, so it should be like certain reserved words only. Okay, you should not give any random name. Okay, so let me give some naming here. So I say just Azure user only. You can give a name also as a username, like you can give like Ramakrishna. Okay, anything you can give, but as a best practice, I will go with Azure user or Azure admin. Okay, let's go with Azure user. And this password will be like something like this is the requirement. This password should be minimum 12 characters length and maximum 123. And this password should include you know one lowercase character, one uppercase character, and one number, one special character. So this is the mandatory requirement. Okay, so for now, let me give some uh, strong password here, and it should match with the same here. Okay, I'm passing the passwords. Okay, it should be matching. And here, okay, so before we go and connect to the VM, okay, we'll be discussing certain ports. So for now, okay, so if at all, if I wanted to connect to the particular Windows server, I should be opening a port called 3389. So this is like a RDP port. So if we wanted to take a remote desktop for the Windows VM, okay, we'll be enabling this particular port. So for now, what I will do is, okay, I will disable this particular port and show you how we can enable later also. And try to remember these ports, which are very basic ports and which are very important. Okay, HTTP port is 80. HTTP is nothing but, okay, so whenever you go to the web, here, right, and you don't see this particular lock symbol for the particular some of the sites, okay, that is like a HTTP topic. And HTTPS means that is 443. And whatever you see like something like a lock symbol and certificate you have, that is like HTTPS topic. And SSH is for the secure shell for the to connect to the Linux machines. So we'll discuss also maybe tomorrow or day after. And RDP is for the Windows machine. This port is very very important. Try to remember these four basic ports. Okay, if at all if I wanted to connect to the Windows machine, I need to enable that port 3389. And for the Linux machine, that is 22. For the these are like a web traffic, that is HTTP 80 and HTTPS 443. For now, I'll keep it as a none. And if at all, somebody was asking me in the demo, okay, if at all I have a on-premises license, okay, can I use that license? Yes, you can do it here. Okay, here you could see the licensing, right? So if you have your on-premises license, okay, you can pass that particular license here, and you will be getting a 49% discount. For example, I say go back here. So by taking this particular size, I'm paying 9,807 rupees per month, right? So in this price, okay, I will get almost 49% discount, almost like a 50%. Okay, so at this moment, okay, we do not have any licenses. Okay, that's why, okay, let's go with the default. Okay, this is something on a basic page. If I go to the next, okay, within this next, okay, here, okay, I need to choose the disk type. So what type of disk I wanted, whether I wanted to go with the HDD, that is like a hard disk drive, or whether I wanted to go with the, SSD, okay, a solid state drive. Okay, so the difference is between these two, okay, the processing speed will be high. Okay, in case of STD, okay, the performance will be like a very too slow. But whereas when you go with SSD, the performance will be too high. So within this also, again, we have like a standard SSD and premium SSD. So based on this also, okay, the pricing will varies. Okay, if at all if you wanted to see, okay, so you can just open a browser, or else, okay, you can just directly navigate from here also. Okay, I can just put a cursor here, and I can just navigate to this particular documentation page. Okay, so here you could see the disk comparisons. Okay, so here I could see the SSD, okay, premium SSD, standard SSD, and standard HDD. And what happens? Okay, so what are the scenarios? Okay, you can go with it. Okay, you can see it maximum IOPS. Okay, how much it will be supported, all the stuff. So the best thing which I recommend you is, okay, if at all you don't understand anything, okay, while creating any something, just put the cursor here and just navigate to the document, and you will understand, okay, by reading this particular thing. Let me come back here. For now, let me go with the default premium SSD, and by default, these are encrypted by Azure. Okay, and adding additional data disk, okay, we'll see later. Okay, how can we do that? And let me go to the networking part. If you see here, by default, a new network is getting created here. Okay, so that is like with a name called Ford East to S Dev RG VNet. So if at all if you wanted to create a new one, okay, just create a new here. And this naming I wanted to modify a bit. So I wanted to create a VNet and 01. And I can see here, okay, so you can choose the certain naming standards what you see here, like 10.1.0.0/16 or something. Same way, okay, so this network, I'm dividing into multiple subnets. Okay, this subnet concept we'll discuss later. And you could see by taking /24 I'm getting 256 IPs, and by taking /16 I will be getting 65,536 IPs. Okay, so this is something like you can see the example here, cider notations. Okay, this is something like a class C private IP, how to give and all those stuff. If at all if you wanted to change the subnet name also, okay, to the same naming standard, you have to do that. Okay, Ford, okay, east to s, and a dev. Okay, this time, okay, for subnet I'll say snet. Okay, and I can say 01. Okay, so this is what, okay, so I generally, we generally follow the naming standards. So once I'm done with this, okay, let me click on OK. If you see, I just changed the namings and IP addresses also here. Okay, so I'm creating a new public IP. So this public also IP also, if you wanted to create on your own, these are all coming with the default. And if at all if you wanted to have your own, so let's say like here I'll just say uh, public IP 01. And this what is this queues basic and assignments, okay, we'll discuss later. But just make you to understand, this assignment could be like if you go with the dynamic, it you will be getting a random public IP. And when you go with the static, okay, this public IP will be constant every time. For example, if I go with the dynamic, and whenever I set down the VM and start it again, it will be assigned a new VM, I mean like a new IP address. But when I go with the static, it will be always constant. For now, let me go with the dynamic and let me click on OK. In addition to this, okay, here we are creating a NIC and public ports, okay, and some other ports. Okay, these are all we'll discuss later. So let me go to the management. So under this management, if at all if you wanted to enable the monitoring and if you wanted to capture the boot diagnostics, so I need to enable this particular one, and I'm just going with the default. And if at all if you wanted to capture the OS guest diagnostics logs also, you have to enable this one. And we can also enable this particular identity feature for the VM. Okay, so if I enable this particular identity, so separate managed identities will be created. So for now, we'll be discussing this topic in a AD. So for now, let's go with the default, and we can also enable the auto shutdown feature. For example, if I say auto shutdown, let's say my office hours are only from let's say my office hours are like only 9 to 6 evening. Okay, so this is a development server, let's say. Okay, for the production, okay, we don't set down the VMs. Let's say it is a development server. So for the development, okay, after 6 p.m., okay, nobody is going to use. From 6 p.m. to next day morning 8 a.m. Okay, if at all if you wanted to make it as an auto shutdown, you can enable this particular feature. Okay, per se, okay, so what time you wanted to set down? Okay, what is the time zone? And what is okay, whether if you wanted to give the notification to the users, okay, you can enable this, and you can just create it. For now, I'm not enabling this auto shutdown. And same way, if you wanted to backup, okay, we can do this also. This backup is a separate topic. Okay, we'll discuss later. And this site recovery is for the DR scenarios. If at all due to any DR, if you wanted to replicate the server to the a different region, you can go with it. So for now, these are all the options. Okay, we'll discuss it later. Let's go with the default for now. And within this advanced, okay, so I told you right. If at all if you wanted to install certain extensions, so I can just pass the particular commands here, some custom script, and I can execute it from here also. Or if you wanted to add the existing ones, okay, so these are the some of the existing extensions you could see. Okay, so if you wanted to go with this particular antivirus, okay, so agent for the cloud workloads, okay, so semantic antivirus, okay, you can choose it and you can go with it. Before you go ahead and use it, okay, you should have a license here. For now, I'm not going with anything. And coming to the tags, okay, so we generally follow the certain tags. For example, okay, let's say a project name. Okay, here, okay, project name we are taking it as a pod, and similarly, something like environment. Here environment we are going with as a dev, and the same as okay, we'll also see like created by. Okay, we also need to keep this particular created by. Okay, you need to give the email ID within your organization. For now, I'm just giving the name here, and we'll also keeping the cost center. So by looking at the tags, okay, so we'll be coming to know, okay, entire details about this particular server. Okay, who has created, what is the cost center, what is the department. Okay, we can also give the department, and we can say department as an IT. So looking at these tags, okay, we'll easily identify that this server is belongs to pod project, and this is a dev environment. And this particular server is created by so and so user, and is belong to so and so department. And if you're done with this all this, okay, let me review and create. Okay, so when you review and create, okay, so here you could see first, okay, you will be able to see the validation is passed, and here you will be able to see whatever the details you have passed. And by the way, here, okay, whatever the pricing here it is giving, it is like a 13 rupees per hour. Okay, it is not like a 13,000. Okay, so once you're done with this, okay, just click on create. Okay, so this is going to create a new VM and new resource group also altogether. So if I wanted to check, okay, just come back here, go to the resource groups. So I can directly navigate directly from here also. So here I could see the resource group name. So I just click on it, and you could see a new resource group is created because we are creating a new resource group also. And if you do refresh, okay, I will be able to see the rest of the resources which are creating here. Okay. So for now, for today, what I want you to do is, okay, just go through this particular basics, about this particular, IP addresses. Okay, I will be sharing the certain documents also related to this, how they are calculated and all the stuff. And then, okay, so just go ahead and create a one Windows virtual machine for today. Okay, just take it as a lab for today, and we'll see the rest of the topics from tomorrow. Okay, so let's wait for this particular deployment.